Welcome back to Booked, the podcast that helps you get booked on podcast. I'm Spencer Carpenter with Outlier Audio, and this is my co-host.
Amanda Foley from Curate Your Soul.
And we are here at Westchester Studios with our producer, Gabe, and we are going to talk today about... what makes a podcast pitch instantly compelling to podcast hosts. I always like going off you to start with these because you've been in it longer than me. You also have perspectives of two different worlds. And so I like using that as a foundation because we can then always talk about what's different or what's changed since you started, and then dive in specifically to the podcast stuff. So I'm going to start with you here. Like, how is it different pitching in podcasts versus PR? And what do you find works? Is it the same for both, or is it different? Like, give me some of that background.
Yeah, I mean, it's very, very different. Podcasts are a whole different animal than editorial pitching, I would say. I mean, in most cases, not to get too far into those weeds, because most people probably are not that interested in it, but you usually, we've touched on this before, it's very news focused or timely focused. And it doesn't mean that podcast pitches can't be that way, but they don't move as fast, right? So unless it's like a live show that's happening every day and the hosts are pulling people in very quickly, usually there's at least a month or two lead if you're lucky, right? Like before that episode even gets booked and aired and comes out. And so I think the difference with podcast is that you are selling something much bigger, which is a conversation versus like a quick hit perspective on a timely topic in the news, right? So like, now everybody's looking for people like who know about gold and silver because they've, have been going up and down.
Just going to say, I have a show that reaches out to me about a client I had in precious metals.
Yeah, because like that was like
back
the big,
every 2 months right now.
And that's what it is. So that's like a timely topic. So most editorial news is moving at that speed, or they're looking for expert commentary. And they're like ways we could do a whole conversation on this too, but I won't go into too much detail there. But to say that with podcast, you get to propose the topic you want to talk about as long as it's aligned with the show. And so I think that's the biggest difference, is that you're going to them and suggesting an idea. You can do that in editorial pitching. It's a lot harder these days to even, you used to be able to pitch whatever so-and-so magazine and say, I have an expert that talks about this particular topic. It's so editorial driven now, though, that it's really tough that most writers that you would pitch would have the authority to even be like, oh, I love this topic. They then have to go sell it. So you're really far removed from, being able to like get to that ultimate decision maker, and they're looking at in the context of something much bigger. So podcasts are kind of similar in that I'm sure hosts are obviously looking at what their show themes are and the types of topics they want to cover, right? Like you're not going to pitch something financial to a wellness podcast. So it has to fit within the parameters of the show, but you can pretty much go in and offer something unique that fits within those themes, and they're going to say yes or no, and they also get to make the decision. Maybe they're looking at their season as a whole. I think some of the bigger shows might do that and look how the episodes fit together. But I think they have more flex than, you would it wouldn't be like surprise. It would be, I would say it would be more surprising if they were like, well, this doesn't fit with the 10 other episodes that I recorded. If they like the topic, they can cover it.
Well, and also every show has its own foundation, and so one of the podcasts that we run for production is the Best Ever CRE Show, and it's a daily commercial real estate podcast. And so 6 days out of the week, it is just a conversation that was recorded within the last 4 to 8 weeks, which even 6 months ago, talking about commercial real estate and interest rates, I'm sorry, maybe more than like a year ago, being 2 months out was actually kind of pushing the limit because things change. But one of our shows was a Sunday show that was recorded on Friday, and it was from an economist, and he would review everything from that week, Monday to Friday. Mostly.
That's more like news. Like that. Yes. That's definitely more like traditional PR.
And so that fit into our thing. And at the time, everything was happening with tariffs and, wars going on and off and things like that. Just lots of volatility and instability in our economies and administration and things like that. And so that was actually usually our most downloaded episode each week was because it was timely and affected people's lives.
Right, you couldn't save it for next month or something, because it would be
the foundation of our show as a whole was not news, and so those things can play in depending on the type of show you're going on. So let's assume we're not doing something news focused and not timely. I know you book guests for shows. I book guests for shows. What is it you are looking for that really makes it super easy to say yes? And obviously topics are part of that.
Yeah.
But like, what else are you looking for? How does the email catch your attention? What are things that maybe are missing that then disqualify? Like what what do you go through there?
Yeah. So I would say the first and biggest thing is that I want to see that they, and again, I don't expect anybody to listen to 1 million episodes or be a fan of the show. Like that whole kind of shtick that's taken over in the pitching world, I think is kind of like, it feels disingenuous to me personally when I get something, unless it's like really sincere and you did. Because there are people that I even pitch that I'm like, I am a huge fan of your show and I loved this, whatever. Or I'm excited to have you come on this show because
if it's not going to be sincere, don't do it.
Don't do it. Exactly. Because people can feel that. And, but what I'll say is you do need to show that you understand the show. So like when I have somebody pitching me, I'm trying to think of a good example that I've gotten lately. So like I have a show that is
what's it called?
It's called the Human Design Podcast. So like she focuses on human design, but she has guests on, the talk health and wellness, like a lot of biohackers, psychology type guests, personal development. And even though she has a primarily female audience, like she will have men on that talk about like issues because she has 2 sons. So like, some of the, like if you've heard of Richard Reeves, like he talks about like, the kind of the issues facing young men today. And so she will have things like that on, but it's like, we had somebody, I'm kind of making this up because I don't remember the exact topic, but it was like talking about like low testosterone in men. And, like if you actually looked at the show, you would see that is really not a topic that is a good fit for this show. And there's definitely ones that probably were even a bigger mismatch that I just can't think of off the top of my head because I try not to let it take up too much of my brain space. But I think you have to, in a nutshell, show that you understand the show. I'll kind of give you like my basic outline of what I need to see. You understand the show and the ethos and what the host mission is. You talk about how the topic you want to talk about fits into it. You don't have to give your resume because I think that's what a lot of people think, that your credentials or, like what you've done in the corporate world, like that. You have to be interesting, right? Nobody cares about your resume when you're having a conversation. Like if I sat here and told you my resume, it would be pretty damn boring, right? Like for us to talk about these things, because that's not what people are there for. And you need to show that you clearly can articulate the key points. Now, will the conversation always go that way? No, because I think it's not real life, but I think you want to help them envision what this conversation could be like. And the foremost important thing is why it is of value to the particular listeners of that show. So you're never going to know the full demographics of every show, but you can pretty much make an educated, strategic guess of who's listening to that show and what they care about just by perusing the names of the episodes and the guests themselves. And so if you can show why there's value for that audience and that you understand what that host is bringing to the show, that builds connection right there. What the conversation looks like, I always say I'm the one that gets the foot in the door, or like if I'm reviewing it, that person needs to capture my attention and I have to say, would Emma want to talk to this person? If it's a big name, it doesn't always mean I'm going to say yes, but I will consider it more prominently. And if you make me have to do work, because I have to put myself on the other side because I'm on both sides of it. If you make me have to do work to learn about the client that you're pitching me, or if I have to do work to learn about
links.
Oh my gosh. And it's funny because I've had this argument with some of the software platforms out there. Oh, links get you sent to spam. I'm like, I have literally an almost 100% open rate. I have a lot of links in my pitches. You want to give examples of shows you've been on, especially if they're big names that they might know or in similar spaces. I personally, especially when I'm pitching bigger shows, like I'll look on Instagram to see who these hosts follow that my client's been on their show. I mean, there's lots of little things you can do, but at the end of the day, the very basic level, show the value, show you understand that how it fits in, make sure they can find you. And I mean, that's pretty much the basics.
What about in terms, and I have this question because, you know, I experiment with having my pitch and then running it through ChatGPT and be like, how could this be better? And it will always take my topics and then add a description of the topic underneath.
Yeah.
And for 4 years, I just made a title of a topic and hoped that the host either understood what I was saying or
would infer their own.
Well,
yeah,
that or
like
caught their interest and like, no, now I want to know.
Oh, right. Like, should you be teasing?
Yes. And
yeah.
I now struggle with it because I'm like, damn, that description's really good.
Yeah,
And
I don't think you want to give too
title,
much, but I usually include a little bit more because I think sometimes
yeah, so that's what I was going to ask is, do you need to understand all the topics that are being presented, or do you like it when it catches your attention? You're like, no, now we want to know the answer.
I'd rather know the way they're going to position it, because otherwise I think you have to guess too much. No, I think that can be helpful for a subject line to get somebody to open your email.
Yeah.
I don't really play the subject line game a whole lot. I mean, I definitely will put a topic in the subject line, but I don't do the whole.
I always lead
teaser.
with topic.
Yeah, like I think you kind of have to give a general, because you just don't want to be misleading, because then you're just wasting someone's time if they're gonna, you know. But I think you can make things more, pique their interest.
It can't be the secret sauce to success. It's like.
What? Yeah.
Yeah. What are you talking?
I might open that just because I'm like, maybe they have something new, but normally they don't.
Are you going into sales? Are you going into mindset? Right. Are you going into marketing? It can't be like that. But yeah. So I was just, but part of the reason I then debate about it is I like all the descriptions. I'm like, this is helpful, except now my pitch is twice as long.
Yeah, you can keep them short. I usually keep the bullets to like 1 to 2 lines max if I can. What I'll say that AI is really good for is when I have like a basic set of topics, it actually is really good for helping to customize and tweak those talking points slightly for the specific show too.
Yeah, that's true.
Because sometimes you can say something in just the tiniest bit of a different way that's going to be appealing to that particular show or that type of show.
Yeah, I think I was telling you about this before is, when I book Tom Bilyeu on shows, he's known for being the founder of Quest Nutrition, but that's not what he talks about. But also what he talks about doesn't always cross over. So recently it was...
But people probably prefer that because they don't necessarily want to be sold. You know what I mean? Right? Like a product.
But it was like he wants to talk about economics, but also AI, but also sometimes mindset type stuff. And so the AI and mindset don't cross over. So tweaking the pitch to be, okay, we're only going to pitch these topics for this show and then these topics for this show.
I don't think hosts hold to them, though, as closely as you might think. I think that to me is more piquing interest and showing them what a conversation could look like. I would say that 9 times out of 10, especially like hosts that are really worth their salt, they're going to come up with their own questions too.
Okay, if you are dealing with a client that is a true thought leader, and the host knows we can truly have an organic conversation, will be fine, then sure.
Yeah.
Other podcasts, if you're talking about a business-to-business podcast,
they're going to have straight talking points.
They exclusively go with the topics I present.
I get it. I worked with a cosmetic dentist at one point, and sorry, there's hair in my face. And he would only talk on certain things. So it was one on entrepreneurship, one on wellness, one on so I get what you're saying. Sometimes there is a more finite set of talking topics depending on the client.
Well, and so that leads into a compelling pitch, especially if you are in the business-to-business space. Our hosts oftentimes are not full-time podcasters.
Right.
They run one business or work one job or maybe run more businesses than that. And so I developed my original thesis in developing a pitch was, how do I make this as plug and play as possible? So that even if they typically do a ton of research or dive in deeper for their guest, maybe I'm the one person that sends them something where they can just say yes. They have all the links. They have a concise bio. They have topics, so they don't have to develop anything. They can just show up.
Right, if they want to make it easy. Oh, I agree. I mean, I think they should be able to conduct the interview from the pitch without having to. I mean, the best pitches that I get for my client shows, when I do some a little briefing document for her, for the one client. And if there's a good pitch, that pitch is always the first thing at the top. Like I'll give her some additional research that I'll use chat to like help me pull together.
Sure.
But for the most part, I'm like, that pitch should really be able to speak for itself.
Yeah.
Especially if people are doing the same thing. If like there's people doing similar work to you, it's like, why are you different?
Right.
And then that alone should give the topic that the host could focus on.
Well, I even try to do it so that, there are plenty of times I will pitch somebody, I get the yes, and they say, can you fill out this form? Mm-hmm. And the form might be, what are topics you want to discuss? And the next one down is, what question should we ask? Now, first off, I think that's such a stupid setup.
Because it's like basically just the flip.
Yes.
Yeah,
and so if I'm feeling spicy, I'll just say, refer to the topics and then reformat them as questions.
Or you can feed them into chat and say, hey, can you turn these into questions?
Yeah, other times I'll turn them into questions.
What did we do before ChatGPT for like that, inane stuff that drives us crazy?
I mean, well, that was how but that's what I mean is I made this through the trial and error. I then figured out like, okay, for my if I'm sending the Instagram, I should not hyperlink it and say Instagram, because then if I actually have to copy and paste it.
If you put it in the form, I know.
So
that is annoying, especially because you do it in the pitch. That's actually, it's funny. I still don't do that. But I always have like for each client, the list of links. Cause when I do some editorial, like expert quotes through the quoted system, then I always at the bottom, because you can't hyperlink in there too. Like I do just have the links. So I have them for each client, because sometimes you do just need to go grab them and it's so annoying.
Well, so that's why I don't put website, Instagram. I put the link. I'll type it out, but I don't hyperlink and use that as my default.
Like, do you do a Spotify list for your clients? Like a Spotify playlist? Because that's the other thing I always do too. Because like in my pitches, when I try to make the connections to be like, so hosts can be like, oh, well, they've been on this show that I am familiar. I just try to build those connections to make it an easier yes.
Yeah.
But what I always have is an Instagram playlist. I'll say like, and more, and then it'll have all of their episodes in that playlist.
Yeah.
And then that's another way, if you have to fill out a form without having to you could list names of shows because a lot of times they'll say like what shows have they been on, but then you can just give the Spotify list.
That's smart. One link versus a bunch is really smart.
Yeah. I mean, I still do link specific episodes because I think there's value in that.
I'll choose like 3.
But in a form, because you're right. But then you have to go pull those links again. And so if you just have the Spotify list, I'm like, here's some names, and then here's the list with her full.
The other thing I found is helpful, and I did this, and then a producer got back to me and told me they appreciate it. I did this was I will put in parentheses next to Instagram, 8,000 followers.
Oh yeah, that's a good idea too.
And if you don't have more than like 1,500, just don't do it at all. It's fine. And it's just, you
but
don't
like
have to
some of my clients have like 70,000 followers or whatever. So yeah, like it is worthwhile. Well, I think too, the other thing I see people do, I don't do this, but a lot of people will say like, I have X number of followers and I'm excited to share the episode. Cause I think that's the other thing too, cause you look at it from a reciprocity perspective, the host gets to deliver a valuable episode, but then they also get new potential listeners too.
Yeah. Well, that's actually something I've been building more into my services with people is I've mostly just been getting them booked on podcasts, and we'll create a static image. But I have found out far fewer people have a marketing assistant or a VA to actually go and repurpose the content. So now I'm producing clips for them and drafting a LinkedIn post.
A lot of if the show's
like
good,
that.
they'll send them to you, which is nice too.
Yeah,
you don't always get that, but that's the ideal.
Well, it's funny though is that even good shows either don't do it or like I was on the Bigger Pockets Rookie podcast, which is a big platform. One of the 2 clips they sent me is exclusively of the host talking.
Well, I don't know. I mean, with like things like Riverside these days, I don't know why people wouldn't, because they basically just create them.
It's still just time.
They create them for you though.
I do. Well, I will edit clips for clients through Riverside, but of the 10 they produce,
are they not very? I've never done it,
usable.
so I don't know. Oh, okay.
And still, it might end at a bad spot or start at a bad spot.
You have to clean them up or whatever.
And quite frankly, because I'm not the editor, my fiance was like, if you're going to sell clips to people, I'm not doing them. So I do the clips, but then I'm reliant on what Riverside produced. I don't actually know if that was everything that was good.
See.
Within
I
the
thought they were
episode.
like really good. I didn't know. I just knew that they.
I mean, they look good for
Yeah.
sure. The whole foundation, like you can switch from vertical to horizontal video like that. It'll update the format, and it's really good at all of that. It's bad. Not bad. It's still just not amazing.
It's not clean.
At that human element of what's good.
Yeah.
In fact, the one that it always suggests is it'll give it a rating. Yeah, it's almost always like the ending 2 sentences from the guest and then the host being, well, thank you so much for being on, because they think it's like a
wrap up or something.
Yeah, they heighten their excitement in the wrap up, and so it always it tricks the AI.
All right, we don't have to talk about Riverside. I brought it up, but anyway, but no, it's I agree with you. Like being willing to share, especially if there are. I mean, that's why I think. I mean, this is a whole other discussion too. But like hosts really should provide clips, because then it's another way for them to grow their show listeners from a new audience too.
Well, so as we wrap up this episode, you know, if you're going to figure out what is going to make it easy for a host to say yes, or a producer or whatever, is making sure that if you are pitching to a podcast that covers timely topics, that you have timely topics. And if you're not, then make sure, I mean, a show that is not timely can still have timely topics.
Yes, of course.
But you don't want to pitch something that's not timely.
Because they can always choose to run it more quickly, right?
Yeah,
like if they're
exactly.
oh, this person talks about this and this is really hot right now. Like everyone's talking about GLP-1s or whatever. Maybe they're like, there's something new that comes out on that and they want to get it out there first. Yes, they can do that too.
Yeah.
But yeah, I say it's value, demonstrating the value for the show, making sure that they know how to like find you and do the research on you, making sure your topic is unique, and you know, and also just like, you know, like being human. Like, I think that's the other thing too. There's so much AI pitching out there now, and I'm not opposed in any way to using AI to help optimize pitches, because I think it's a great tool for us.
But you have to be guarded against it looking like AI.
That's why I say, like, I will never take a whole pitch from AI, but I will feed certain things in and say, help me combine these ideas like in a more pithy way, or whatever it might be. So I use it to help me optimize my pitches and really make them custom, but that pitch will always be my pitch in my voice. And I think that's part of the issue, is when you see these like generic pitches that don't really say anything. Because I mean, that's the thing with AI. It's great for information, but there's no humanity or wisdom in it. And I think, you know, if you don't know how to prompt it right, it can be really like, it's
very hook heavy.
Well, yeah. And when I say dangerous, I don't mean dangerous in that like AI is going to take us. So I mean dangerous in terms of like, you're going to lose opportunities,
right?
Because people are going to be like, well, this sounds like everybody else. It's like LinkedIn these days too. Like it's so tempting to use LinkedIn or use AI for LinkedIn posts. And I will use it to help me, like, 'cause sometimes my brain's just all over the place and it helps me kind of like pull it all together in a way that would take me a lot longer.
Sure.
But I mean, if I read it and it doesn't sound like me, or it uses like, it's not this, but that. I'm like, nope.
Don't like the fluff.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, yeah. So I think that does it for today. This is Booked, the podcast that gets you booked on more podcasts. My name is Spencer Carpenter with Outlier Audio, and this has been
Amanda Foley.
Yeah. So thanks, and come back next week.
See you then.